you can draw this in Procreate. I will take you through all the steps of creating this illustration with lots of cats. I think this will work perfectly as a background for your iPad or for your phone, and it is super easy. What you need is a canvas of 2000 by 3000 pixels, but of course you can also use a custom size. And I have linked a color palette down in the description, and of course it's totally free. So if you're ready, let's get started. We'll start this cat drawing process by creating a sketch because I want to find a nice balance of shapes. And to create that sketch, you can use any sketching brush that you like. I'll be using the peppermint brush right now and just the color black. And I have the opacity at 100% and I have the size at, what is it? Let's set that to 70%. And then at first, I just want to fill the canvas with these rounded shapes. These will become our cats later. And this makes it easier, just focusing on these rounded shapes without thinking of any ears, noses, or eyes, or expressions, just focusing on those shapes and varying them a little bit. Some are a bit more like longer, taller shapes. Some might have like an extra little bump here. And they are overlapping each other. So it's nice to only have to think about that. This might be a very big one. Maybe we can make this one a little bit bigger as well. And then a nice big shape here. So it's just about varying these shapes a little bit. This one will have this extra little bump. And maybe we have a really big chunky one here. And just fill your entire canvas with shapes like this. And we'll start, like I said, like I'm doing now, you'll start at the bottom and then go up because that way you can easily make these overlapping cats. Down like this. And then we'll go over here. And it's okay if your sketch is messy. So don't think about the ears yet. Just these like blobs. They look a bit like pawns, some of them, like chess pawns. Very chunky chess pawns. Or like rounded cones. And then there's one over here, just on the side. So this is like the first way in which you can vary the shapes of your cats. We are going to use many ways to vary our cats, and these base shapes are the first way to vary them, and then later we can change or vary the expressions of the cats, and we can play around with different colors, different patterns. But this is the start. This is the first way of varying them. Here, I'll make a long one. Rounded one here. And maybe I can get a bit more space at the top. What you can do if you want to adjust this a little bit, you can go to the Move and Transform tool. Let's just set it to freeform and squish these cats just a little bit. Want a little bit more space at the top. And then tap the arrow again. I want one over here. And maybe one here that is almost out of sight. Maybe this one can be a little bit bigger. And one over here. Maybe this one could be a little bit taller as well. Try to get a nice balance between them. So not just straight rows of cats. Some can be a little bit higher, some a little bit lower. It also helps to change how big they are, how tall they are. And here we'll just have these lines. Those are just like the bodies of cats that are further away. So now that we have these base shapes, we can start adding the features of the cats. So let's lower the opacity of this sketch. So just go to the layer menu and then tap the N. Let's lower it just a little bit, like to 50%, and then tap the plus for a new layer on top. And now we are going to refine these cats. And this is the next way in which you can vary the cats. So we are going to add little ears, rounded little triangles, and also their expressions. So like the eyes, little nose, and a mouth, and their whiskers. And we're going to do this for each cat. And this is, like I said, this is where you can vary a bit. Maybe some will have bigger or smaller ears. Some will have a different expression. Gonna keep this one simple. Just a little mouth, maybe a little like chin for this one. Then the next one, little ear, top of the head, another ear, and maybe this one has its eyes closed. So I'll just make these lines. Little nose, smile, and maybe some like hairs here. You can also vary the amount of whiskers. For some you can go for 3, for some you can use like 2. For some you can just leave them out. These are all small things that can help with that variety. Here are the eyes, and you can also go for an open mouth like this, adding a little curve underneath. So this one is extra happy. And here we have one for which we can only see like the ear here, and maybe a sleepy eye. And it can be handy to start with cats that are in front of others. Here we have the ear, and maybe this one has these hairs at the top. Maybe it's a bit more fluffy. And it's behind this cat. Also try to vary that so that you don't start with this one in front and then all the others behind the first. Try to vary that. So this one is in front of this one. You know, try to find a bit of a balance there. Now for this one's expression, I want this one to be a bit confused perhaps. Make its nose. And then maybe just a little wiggly line like this. It can be fun to add a few different expressions. Now this one is just happy. And later on, like I said, we'll also vary with the colors, with patterns. So in each phase, you can add a little bit of variety, and that will really add up in the end. So it'll be like unified, but also varied. Little nose, curly mouth, and some whiskers. Little ear. And sometimes you can make the top of the head a bit more flat than for others. For instance, this cat is a bit more like cone shaped. I'll have this one have closed eyes and an open mouth. Oh, I see I was zoomed in, so I missed a little part over here. Make sure you keep an eye on that. Let me grab the eraser here and fix that eye a little bit. Move it a little bit to the right. So make sure you zoom out every once in a while to check if you haven't missed an area for the edges. Now this one is a little bit chunky. Eyes here at the top, little nose, and a little open mouth. Then for this one, let's add the ears. For this one, I want a different expression. I want the eyes to be like this, closed. Maybe it has an open mouth, as if it's yawning. Or maybe it's singing, meowing. This one is nice and round. Eyes over here. And a little nose and mouth. Then for this one, add an ear. This side. And then those eyes a bit towards this direction, towards the right, and a little open mouth. Looks as if he's looking at the other cats. And on this one, nice chunky cat. Can also vary with the distance between the ears. Maybe this one has eyes like this, sleepy. And now continue sketching out these cats until you have something like this. And in case you feel insecure about coming up with different expressions, different shapes, you can just follow the link to the color palette and also find my finished illustration. So you can use that as a reference and to come up with ideas for your own cats. Now that we have our completed sketch, we can lower the opacity. Let's set it to like 30% and let's lower the other one even more to like 10%, something like this. And then we can make a layer on top, just tap the plus. And on this layer, we are going to create our line art. And we'll create our line art with the studio pen. We need to go to inking and then grab the studio pen. I'll just stick with black and I'll set the size of the brush to 10%. And the opacity should be at 100%, otherwise you'll get transparent lines. And with this brush, the harder you press, the thicker your lines will become. And if you press lightly, you'll get thinner lines. And we are going to make use of that. Let's go in here for our first cat and try to make the lines a little bit thinner near the end of them and at the beginning. So lightly, harder, lightly. And then the ear. And then the side. And then we can do the eyes. And then for the nose and the mouth, I use very light pressure. And for the whiskers as well. So we get some variety in the line weight. And that's, well, that means how thick the lines are. And having that variety will make your illustration look more interesting. Now, if you struggle with the pressure, with the amount of pressure you need to put on your pen, then you can play around with your pressure curve. If you go to Prefs and then to Pressure and Smoothing, you can see that this is what my pressure curve looks like. So if you struggle with that pressure sensitivity, it can pay off to play around with this. So we'll just continue following our lines. And sometimes it can also be nice to leave some gaps for your lines, for instance. Leave a little gap just to make it look playful. The lines don't have to be perfect. And just follow your sketch. And you don't have to follow your sketch exactly. So just like this, we are going to follow the lines of all our cats. Creating these cute expressions, adding little details. Then this one. And just rotate your canvas, of course, to adjust the angle to make it easier to make certain strokes. For some cats, we can also add a little line in the ear. This is also another way to vary the look of your cats. These are just tiny little varieties. Tiny things that you can change for each cat. And it'll make it look more interesting. So continue following your sketch lines until you have followed them all and it looks like this. So now we have all our lines. We can turn off our sketch layers. And then underneath our line art, we can start adding colors to our cats. So first tap this layer, then tap the plus. And then for our first color, let's go for this pink. First color in the third row. And now you can pick some cats that you'd like to be pink. So I'll go for this one, for example, and I'll just trace the outline of this cat and then drag in the color. Maybe we'll have a pink cat hiding here. And you can pick your own cats, of course. Just try to get a bit of a balance. So don't put like 3 pink cats right next to each other. Try to leave some space in between. And the reason I'm tracing here, I'm making this shape and not just dragging in the colors on the line art, is because we have, or at least I have, quite some gaps in my line art. That's because I like that style. But that also means that I can't just drop in colors. I'll have to do this by hand. But that's okay. It's actually quite relaxing. You don't have to think about anything. You can just follow these shapes and just pick the cats that you feel need to be pink. I think this one will look good with this pink color. So I'll just trace it. And always make sure that there are no gaps, otherwise, of course, the color will spill all over. And maybe this one can also be pink. This one in the background. I hope you're having fun so far drawing this group of cats. If you'd like to have even more fun, then I would highly recommend checking out my Patreon. It's an amazing place where you can find more than 200 Procreate tutorials, and they cover a wide variety of subjects, including lots of cute stuff, but also this amazing 3D balcony house. So go check that out. Of course, there's a link in the description. But now let's continue. And then for the next color, I'll make another layer. I'll tap the plus, and now I'd like to work with the purple color, fourth color in the third row, and I'll just pick some cats that you'd like to give this color to. And you can see that these colors, they are quite harmonious. They are close together when you look at their saturation, and that eventually will make this look like a pleasing illustration. It would look weird if I would mix like different saturation amounts. If I would go for a very, very bold saturated purple, it would give a different look. So it's nice to keep those colors a bit close together. It's a bit like pastel colors in this case. That's just the look I want to go for. But if you would like to go for something more bold, then you could try and keep those colors close together. So pick a variety of more bold and saturated colors. It's just, usually I feel like it looks more pleasing if you go for just a certain look. So either these more muted colors or combine a couple of more bold colors. I'll also make this one purple. This is a very furry cat. He's a bit different from the rest. I'll just follow these fluffs. Along the edge. And then fill it in. And let's see, maybe we can have a purple one here in the corner. Next, I'd like to make a layer for some yellow cats. Let's tap the plus and then grab this color, first color in the second row. And then I'll just pick some cats. And you can see this color is also a bit muted, nice and soft, but it'll stand out a bit against the purples and the pinks. Following the edges. So we're just giving flat colors right now for our cats. This one as well. Keep it tidy here. Drag in the color. I see I accidentally undid this one. And then I'll color a couple of more like this. Then let's move on to the next color. Let's make another layer for that. Let's tap the plus. And now let's go for this dark gray, fourth color in the first row. And I just want a few of these like black cats. And these are like black cats, but still the color is a bit muted. It's nice and soft. It combines nicely with the pastels. I'll just make a few of these in this color. Again, just following the lines. Drag it in. And then I'll go for this one. Some nice distance between them. Drag it in. And this confused little guy here, color that one as well. Drag in the color, and then finally over here, one in the background. And then I just want some light gray cats, and the rest will remain white. Let's tap the plus, and then let's go for this color, second color in the first row. And then we'll color some of these. Let's see. Am I seeing a color? Yeah, it's working. So just a few gray cats. Follow the lines and drag into color. So just color a bunch of them like this. Now we have the flat colors. Now let's add color to all the noses. Now let's make a new layer for that. And for the color, let's use this one, third color in the third row. And that will just color each mouth and each nose until you've done them all like this. And then on this same layer, we are going to add lots of rosy cheeks. And to do that, we are going to change our brush. We'll go to the painting brushes, and then we'll use the round brush. And we'll stick with this color, and we'll set the opacity to, well, around 82%. And for the size, I'd like to go to 10%. Let me just save that. And then we'll go over our light cats. For the black cats, I'd like to use a lighter color. So we'll just pick our light colored cats. So the white ones and the purple ones. And yeah, white, purple, and pink. For the gray ones, I'd also like to use a different color. That will stand out a bit more. Oh, and we can also use this for the yellow ones. So just go over them and add these cute rosy cheeks. Just a little dot. And for some, you can make them a bit more round. For some, a little bit more oval. That's another way, again, to add some variety. Also, the position of them. You can vary that a bit. Some can be a little bit lighter. Just going over all of them. hoping I won't miss one. I need this one. This one. And then, like I said, I'll switch the color for the darker cats. Let's grab this one, this color for that. Second color in the third row. And then we'll also add some color to those cheeks. See, I forgot a little nose here. Trying not to miss one. I think I have them. Now we'll use the same brush, but we'll make the brush smaller. We'll set it to 3%. So we can also use this to color some of these ears. And for these, like for these gray cats, we'll use this color. And for the other cats, we can use the darker pink. And you don't have to do all of them. Just pick a few, like this one perhaps. And then let's switch the color to the third color in the third row to also color some ears for the lighter cats. Just adding a little triangle. And so this is another thing in which you can vary. Some of the cats will get like this pink on their ears and some won't. It's all tiny little things that you can vary. Just a few more. And let me color this nose. I'll go back to the inking brush, to the studio pen, and fix this nose. Next, we'll go to the individual colors and add some shadow to our cats. I will go back to that painting brush, to the round brush, make it a bit bigger, set it to 10%, and let's start with our white cats. To add shading to those, we just need to make a layer at the bottom. So we'll go here and tap the plus, and this layer is underneath the other colored cats. So when we paint on here, you won't see it on the other cats. Now for the color, we'll go for this one. First color in the first row. And this is just a very light bluish tone. And we can use that to go over like these undersides of our cats, adding a very subtle shadow. We can go along like the cats that are in front of them. Also just generally over the bottom of these cats. Make sure not to go over other white cats. So like here over the top, try to avoid that. And I hope you can see it on camera since it's quite subtle, but I'm sure you'll see it on your iPad. Just a little shadow at the bottom and along some of those edges around cats that are in front of them. also over here, even though we can't see its face, but we can add some shadow there. And also here. And while we're at it, while we're working on these cats, we can also add some extra touches like patterns. Let's grab this color, fourth color in the second row. And for instance, we can give this one like an orange ear. Nice dot. And maybe a spot here. And we can also make this brush smaller, set it to 3% again, and give some of these cats stripes maybe. And you don't have to stick with this color. You can also go for a gray, like this fourth color in the first row. Maybe this one has gray stripes. You can add whatever touches you like to your cats. Now let's move on to the pink cats. What you can do is you can either make a new layer on top, tap the plus, set that new layer to clipping mask, or let me remove this, or you can tap this layer and set it to alpha lock. Both ways will enable you to just paint on the pink cats without going outside of the shape. Now for the color, I'd like to use this one, second color in the third row. And again, let me zoom out a little bit. We'll go over the bodies. Let's set the size to 10% again. And we'll add a bit of a shadow at the bottom. Also over here. A little bit here. Just along the bottom parts of these cats. And also for these, we could add some patterns. Let's use this color for that. Fifth color in the second row. And maybe this one also has a colored ear. Little spot here. And maybe some will have some stripes. We can set the size to 3% again. And add some patterns. And maybe this one as well. Then on to the purple ones. I'll set this layer to alpha lock. And for the color, I'll use this one, fifth color in the third row. Set the size to 10% again. And go along the bottom of their bodies. Adding a nice subtle shadow. It'll just add a little bit more depth to your illustration. This one. And over here. Then for our yellow cats, tap the layer, turn on alpha lock, and for the color, grab this one, second color in the second row, and add those shadows. And this one. This little guy. And also with this brush, if you use less pressure, it'll be a bit more transparent, so you can make that shadow fade a little bit. Now for some patterns, we can use the third color in the second row and make our brush smaller again, set it to 3%, and give some of these a little pattern. maybe some colored ears or some spots. And you could also color those insides of these ears for some. Maybe add some spots here. Just vary it up a little bit. And then finally we still have 2 more to go. Next for our black cats, let's set the layer to alpha lock. And then let's grab this color, 5th color in the first row. And set the size to 10% again. And then for some shadow for them. Go over the lower area and along the cats that are in front of them. And this one. And here, this one in the back. And then finally, we just need to do that for the gray cats. Tap the layer, turn on alpha lock, and for the color, grab this color, 3rd color in the first row. And then again, go over their bodies, over the bottom area. And add a little bit of shading where you can fill the ear area a bit. Oh, and this one, let's not forget this guy. And then we got them all. I hope you have enjoyed following along. Let me know if you did, and then I would love to see you next time for the next tutorial.